Hey everyone, and welcome to Think Copilot. My name's Garry Trinder. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and I have with me today Waldek.
Hey everybody, my name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I am developer advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
And we have with us today our guest, Tommy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, Thomas Gölles, or Tommy, as most people in the community know me. I work for Solvion. I'm currently the head of consulting and engineering services there. Yeah, old SharePoint guy, and happy to talk about Copilot today.
All SharePoint guy, but fully into AI, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about today. So, so on this subject, how do you use AI? How do you use it in your day-to-day work to, kind of make yourself more productive?
Yeah, we as a company started, I think, in late August or early September in this, I hope I tell it correctly, Jumpstart program for partners, something like that, with everyone at our company, 50 people, with everyone up and running with Copilot. And the first thing that I learned is that, I made fun of it in the first time, like, okay, this thing is able to summarize my emails. That's my daily driver. That's one of the most features I use every day, the one that I made fun of in public already before really using it. Scanning through emails, summarizing my emails, scanning my inbox in a way of, okay, subject, sender, is it super important? And I read it, is it not so important? Copilot, tell me what's in that message. Is the summary important? Then read the proper message. I will never manage to have, or never manage to be like a inbox zero guy. So I don't tell the number, but it's unimaginable high. But that helps me to, stay at least a bit on top of my inbox. That's one of the very first things that I use daily. And otherwise, to be honest, it helps me, especially in cases where I need to write something in English, because I'm not a native English speaker. And most of the time, I think about what do I want to communicate, what feeling, what emotion do I want to create at the person reading this. But then I'm stuck with my limited amount of words that I know of the English language. Don't talk about my written skills, it's even different, or grammar, but that's perfect for those AI tools. Like, create something like this and that with this notion. And as always, I'm never using it as it is, but give me 15 versions of it. Tweaking, tuning, and then use it. Personally, using it for probably all my session submissions, most of my LinkedIn posts, always with a special or a personal touch as well. Not to be like, okay, everyone knows, or most of the people are following me longer and know me, and if I then now from one day of the other be like the perfect literature guy in English, no. So it must have something also for me. But presentations, emails in English, super cool, and for presentations and communication materials, even in German. I'm making always the case of, okay, think of a super famous marketing slogan. I don't want to okay, are we good to name any companies, or do you have any problem with that? Okay, I just do it. I just do it, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You didn't name the company.
Good one, right? And think of a Copilot communication piece that you want to do, and say, okay, invent a tagline along like this. Give me 30 options. And if you do that, you realize that all of those 30 options are not out of the world. You would, with 3 guys like us in the room, after a day, we will come up with 15 of that, but not in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And then go, okay, next 30. And then I turn around to the customer or to the audience, okay, what's your favorite? And that's super impressive, because they say, okay, this one, that one. And for presentations, for headers, for introductions, for basically everything. And it depends on how AI like would you like to sound? How marketing like would you like to sound? Trim it a bit down. And one of your colleagues mentioned the idea of he uses it the same way, but tells Copilot, for example, remember, I'm not a native English person. People can or should realize that. So it doesn't sound super perfect and super polished, which is a nice touch to keep this human imperfect touch and not to be too sterile in our communication.
Yes, you touched on so many things. I don't even know where to start. First things first, like you mentioned really a bunch of ways in which you use it, from summarizing emails to presentations to writing. How do you come up with all the different ways in which you can apply? Like, what makes you? What led to the fact that you realized basically it seems like on every step you do something, you're like, I can use AI for this. Like, what was like how do you go about it? And is that really something that you've got ingrained already, or is it something that you go still about like trying to do it by yourself, and then you're like, oh, I have this AI thing?
Yeah, it depends. I grew into using it, to be honest. At first, the exact thing that you mentioned, it's tough to think about a new tool because you're used to your workflow and you're doing it the same way, and maybe you have time pressure, and we all have our tools, and we are used to do it that way. And introducing a new tool to that workflow isn't easy. But especially for PowerPoint, a couple months already, I realized, okay, that is really helpful. And thinking about, okay, what do I want to communicate? What emotion do I want to create with my sentences? And with that in mind, I'm now almost always in the mind like, okay, second screen, open, tell me, help me, do me. And we are at the point that it's one other idea. We as a company, I'm in our leadership steering, whatever you want to call it. We had the task to really write down our core values. That's even in your own language, that's a super tough thing to do.
Oh yeah,
having like one sheet of paper that defines your core values. And we had that for years, and they were like word and 5 or 6 sentences explaining the value. Cool. Who reads that? Who writes that? No one, basically. So going to Copilot and going in, okay, I'm tasked with that one. Make it memorable, make it catchy, keep it to one sentence, and give me 15 different options for each of our values. And that was like this one moment, like, wait a second, I can apply that basically to every input box on my screen. And we are at the point that at some meetings, my colleagues are like, go ask your tool. They know that I will do it already. Same thing happened with a colleague of yours a couple of days ago. He was like, yeah, ask your tool. We need that now. So that's we are at that point already that for text. And a couple of weeks ago, I started playing also with image generation.
Okay.
That's more challenging if you think of like, okay, you want to have it photorealistic. Not all the tools are capable. It's more like a hit and miss game, to be honest. But if you're okay with people realizing, okay, that's an AI generated image, and I'm a friend of being totally transparent about that, because why should I hide it? Because you see it, or people think about it and guessing. So no problem with saying, okay, it's an AI tool, because it used to be a web search before. So where's the difference? No problem with that. It doesn't. And for images, I already see a tipping point, because we all probably have memories of presentations where you realize every image in the presentation was AI generated, that hype thingy a couple of months ago. And then you start now people being proud of using their own pictures, the pictures that they took. So the change, like, okay, I'm not the AI image guy. Yeah, this will be interesting next week in Orlando to see how speakers are using graphics and images, especially for that case. I'm not judging, but who writes the AI train, and who on purpose says, I'm not on the train, I'm doing it differently. because we all will see that in the next
right?
weeks.
Basically, the artisan images.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that you've mentioned on, we've talked about a lot here, talked about summarization, idea generation, brainstorming, being able to get, 15, 30 examples in, seconds rather than the time it takes to, sit in a room for 25 minutes where everyone's writing down their own ideas and then sharing them in a whole room as well. Right. And then you kind of like almost have a shopping list, right? Of like, well, I want that. I quite like that. Or that one's really good, actually. Do a few more like that as well. So you're just, kind of going backwards. But the one thing which I was really interested in was the behavior kind of change. It was almost like you were talking like behavior hacking. It's like you're thinking of the result of like, I want the person who's reading this or viewing this to have this particular emotion as I'm going through. And that was interesting when we've talked about, using AI for different things, like speeding things up, like writing code and stuff like that. But that was a really interesting perspective of that.
Mm.
So I was thinking, like, have you had any kind of like examples where you've gone like, oh, like AI is now the thing? I know you talked about your email and speeding things up. But was there a particular moment where you were like, okay, this is a game changer? Like, can you remember that moment?
I mean, I've studied computer sciences in the early 2000s, and we already used to have assignments back then with like image detections and all those things. So it's not like I'm not super deep in that level, but I think in terms of the whole population, I know a bit more than the regular Joe or Jane. I'm in no way saying I'm an expert in the algorithms. There's a way more smarter people doing that. What really made me like, that's interesting is like the combination of AI and cloud, meaning it's available for me with one click. Going to the Azure portal, whatever the service, is it the language service, is it the image service, is it the GPT, doesn't matter, but it's basically available with 3 or 4 clicks. Given that you have the proper credit card assigned, subscription, money, all good. But with that was for me the game changer. Like, okay, I can have a super regular laptop, but there is a way of using hardware or making hardware available for me that is unimaginable for me 15 years ago.
Right.
That's for me way more of an impact than one particular AI tool. Just that, okay, it's here with one click and it's scalable. Because I really strongly believe that we are just touching the surface in terms of what is possible with the AI services in Azure. But on the other hand, in a couple of years, they are just APIs. Because that's in the long run, it's just another API. We are in the hype phase, all good about that. That's normal. But a GPT or image detection, I mean, who gets super hyped about the translation API anymore? That's just you using that thing. And think about it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like, wow, cool. Yeah. And I think everything that we are super hyped now will be commodity over the next couple of years already. And the thing really is like, okay, this having the capabilities of going to a cloud vendor, clicking a few buttons, and the thing is ready to go for my application. That's way more interesting in my thinking.
You mentioned an interesting thing. You mentioned that folks around you kind of start acting like go ask your tool.
Yeah.
Your tool. To what extent, how much work did you have to put into it to train it, fine-tune it, optimize it with system prompts or do other things versus, or maybe you have a whole array of GPT's assistants and whatnot for the different things, or is it a generic Copilot you go to and it just works? Or do you have like array of pre-optimized, pre-trained, pre-built things?
I spent a couple of hours or almost days between Christmas and New Year's. There's this. It's a German conference from the Chaos Computer Club. This almost hacker conference that, of course, was also all about AI. On purpose, I'm super interested in looking outside the Microsoft bubble because I'm confronted it, and I will get all the Microsoft buzz and news through my day job anyways. So it's hard to keep up. Don't get me wrong. That's not an easy task. But if Azure or if Microsoft 365 goes in a certain direction, I will realize it sooner or later. I don't need to be the first guy to know it, but I will know it. I'm way more interested in, okay, how are people outside our bubble using the technology, and what can I learn from them? Because what you guys, for example, are doing, sooner or later, it will be in my LinkedIn feed, it will be in my Twitter feed, it will be somewhere if I see it. So it doesn't matter that I see it this week or in 4 weeks, I will see it. But what people outside our bubble are doing, if I'm not looking there, I won't see it.
Correct.
And those conferences or those sessions were super interesting about security. So I did a deep dive into trying to break Copilot. Managed to do it really in a way of I cannot talk about it, but I have an open case with your security research center.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is a bit scary, to be honest, that I am able to have that, because I don't think that I'm the super smart guy, and I shouldn't be able to do that easy. Can talk about it off record, but not here.
But
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And those sessions basically teach me in a way how to think about the prompt and basically apply or treat it like a human, to be honest. I don't know why, but I say please and thank you to Copilot.
Like, just in case,
Don't
one day they will take over the world. You have the credits.
That's without thinking about it for a second. It's just like I don't give like commands. Please do that. Please give me a list of. I don't say create me a list. Not on purpose. Not I read afterwards that it changes the way the thing reacts. If you
Really?
For example, if you go to Copilot or all other large language models and say, you are a world-class translator, you are one of the best translators of the English language, you get better results if you just say translate A to B. That's super scary on one part, but it opens up all the human thingies somehow, because it's trained on language that we are, or on language that is written by humans somewhere. And that opened up a lot of thinking for me, like, okay, how should I treat that? How should I talk with that? How can I use that? And those kind of system prompts, samples, this one-shot training or train of what is it? Train of thought? No.
Yeah.
Train of thought. All those kind of things playing around, and then from there, I'm more a bit afraid of, like, okay, I have now my tool set, and when do I have time to adapt to the new tool set? Because probably in a couple of weeks we've built, everything will be new again, I guess. Or
which is nice in a way, right? That I like to see the advancement and change and the constant improvement. And it's exactly as you say, like it's unfathomable at times, that the things that are just given to us like 10 years back, impossible. Like it was very much, a sci-fi thing, whereas now it's just a reality. And now I think the period of time went from years to months to weeks to maybe at times days, where you think like, hey, like, what if we could do that? And then you read some articles like, it's already there. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And the other part that I'm prepping already also for our workshop at ECS, but I started playing with Olama and
That's really cool.
creating vector DBs and embeddings on my own. Not in the sense of, okay, I want to create applications for it, just to understand how the thing works. Creating my own RAG pattern implementation for a couple of documents, just to get an idea. what maybe is part of the black box of Copilot. Knowing that I'm only touching the surface and I probably will never be able to look into the black box, that's okay. But to get understanding, what does this mean for content? What can I bring, or what can I do to my content to be better consumable for an AI?
Anything you learned so far that you would be willing to share with others? Like one tip, like when you write or when you prep something, think about X.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's already a tip, but it's more like an interesting question. And then I looked up, or I watched a YouTube video a couple of days ago about what's it called now? Azure Search Ranker. That used to be like Semantic Index. I think they renamed it to Search Ranker, something like that. Don't quote me that. I think it was a mechanics video 2 or 3 days ago, where the problem is like, okay, if you really know your content and you know what does the RAG pattern do? It splits up your documents or your content in documents, and those documents are a certain size. So you can go in there and say, okay, my document window is like 2,000 characters and 50 characters overlapping. So you go through this window and then you scan through your content. But if I know my content is like what I tried, like a question answer style of thing, I realized, okay, I cannot only put in as a parameter like a fixed code, a fixed amount of characters, but also a limiter. So I exported my question answers with 3 ampersands in the end. I parsed for that, and I got totally different results back, because the documents for the vectorization, for the embeddings, are already the things that I want. So knowing about the structure, that's something that I'm super interested to see in the next couple of weeks. And I expect that Microsoft, sooner or later, basically in every UI, there will be like GPT and custom and bring your own thing. But how will this work with my content?
So
that
in other
maybe
words,
is
like
completely
what is
different structured.
Yeah. So basically, like what is basically the same way? Like when you write a document and you make it up for printing, you have page breaks, section breaks, all of that. What is the equivalent of that? What are the kind of the non-printable characters that instruct LLMs and the parsers to scan and go through it, right? Like what are the kind of the embedded instructions in content?
And I had luck, because the sample that I used a C# LangChain, because I'm only able to write C#. LangChain tool, they used basically 200 characters document size, 20 characters overlap. And my learning documents has a bunch of references to Microsoft documentation. And I asked, it's a OneDrive database. I asked always, what's the storage limit of OneDrive? That's the one question I'm doing there. And I realized that all my documents are basically the full hyperlink, because that hyperlink already is 200 characters.
Oh,
And I was like,
gotcha.
That's because you see it in the chain, and like, that's not good.
Yeah,
that's not helping for the LLM. So what's wrong there?
There you go.
When I saw that, I was like, oh,
or emojis and links.
There's something in there that's I'm the feeling, like I'm holding it wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be. So what is wrong here? And then I realized, okay, what do you do? Okay, it's not 200. Let's go up to 2,000. See what happens. Oh, that's too much. Okay. What is it doing? Because my vector DB for, that's the other scary part. The document was like 1.2 megs, so a small PDF document. And in the first version, my vector DB was 104 megabytes. Because for 200 as a character size for documents, you can imagine how many vectors it generated. And that's what the other thing, like, okay, that can't be true, that for 100x of storage, that's not how the cloud operates. That's not how Microsoft can feasibly make the content available. So I must be wrong here. And luckily with those parameters at the first example, I was like, no, let's tweak that. And then I realized, okay, what can I do there? And that gave me a total different understanding of how the thing works. I'm not saying I'm not 100% sure it's exactly that way, but on a higher level, it gives me a better understanding, and that helps me with also talk with it in a different way.
Yeah, that was the bit I was about to ask about, the understanding how everything fits together to then better ask questions or construct your prompts to get better answers that are more relevant, more accurate, right? Which is that's the holy grail in a way, right? That's what everyone's after. You want those accurate results every single time. So if, let's say, for example, you were showing someone how to use a Copilot for the first time, what kind of tips would you give them that maybe don't have that depth technical knowledge that you might have to get the best out of it?
It depends on the person, to be honest. So I would need, or I would ask, what are you doing? The first thing, because my tips and what we maybe care about as a common thing isn't interesting to everyone. So after getting to that, probably showing off how you can write an email with a basic prompt, because that's still something that just touches the surface, but already shows the great opportunity. And then again, already that's always what I like to do. After that first wow, immediately afterwards give an example that also shows the limits of the tool. Because it's not everything isn't super and cool. You need to use it in a correct way. For example, this week at one of my, I'm also an external lecturer at university. We talked about using Azure functions with PowerShell to talk to a storage account. And basically everyone in the classroom is using Copilot, and they have no idea what they're doing there. And the thing just the version of the Azure PowerShell command that Copilot returned wasn't the same version that the student had installed. It was just giving back, okay, I don't know that command. For us, it's super easy to, okay, wrong command, wrong version, all those things. For those kind of people, it's if you have no experience, super scary, because one time it works, a lot of time it doesn't work. So I always like to also show the limits and don't let people in that AI hype thingy and in this bubble, like everything, or you will lose your job and this will resolve all your problems. No. It's a super tool, but in certain aspects, certain areas. So always try to a little bit manage the expectations also.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that, something like if you don't have knowledge on a particular subject, your questions are going to be quite short because you've got limited knowledge, right? So the response that you get back, it's kind of like, well, it looks good, right?
Yeah.
It's in the right area, but I don't have the knowledge to necessarily back up or ask the right things in my initial prompt. So, things like being more specific. So you could get around that by saying, hey, I want PowerShell, but remember use like PowerShell 7, not Windows PowerShell. There's a difference, right? That would then give you more accurate, like better answers. And I think that's a lot of having to get into that mindset of like we've mentioned numerous times actually in this chat about thinking about your outcome and how you want to get there and leaving out assumptions, because if you don't put it in, an assumption's being made on your behalf. You don't know the potential bias of the model that it's using, for example. It could be like, oh, well, actually it's trained on Windows PowerShell and not PowerShell, so it's going to go there first instead of actually you saying, no, I want you to use this. So I think that kind of comes back to how we get the best use out of these tools.
Yeah, it always, I hope I get that correct now, because it would be embarrassing otherwise. But it brings me back the memory of Waldek, you need to help me here. There was a tool back in the day before you used the WSP builder with MakeCap and creating the old SharePoint packages. There was a time where you need to define the manifest and create the package on your own, and then in some version of Visual Studio, magically the F5 experience came along.
That came really late. That came only with 2010. First, we had the WSP builder that was from Karsten Koitman, and before that, there was a tool
Danish
by
guy,
Ted Pedersen, build one. DDF builder? No.
Yeah, there were a couple of tools. but it always reminds me of that, because that was it's so ingrained in my memory. People that used to work with us before the time, and afterwards they have no idea what this WSP package looks inside, because they never needed to build it. And that's the same thing over here. You can only peel the onion so far. It in the core, it might be a black box, but I want to go deeper. I want to understand what it's doing, especially if it's not working. Because there will be a time where the code that I get doesn't work, and then it's interesting. Because just creating and creating, cool, but then you go to debug, you go to edge cases, you go to testing, and if you don't have the understanding of what actually, why is the line there and what's doing there, then Copilot doesn't help you. You're fast in the beginning, but it's like we had a like a Scrum retro, but more for salespeople, and one of our guys was like, it's like Copilot is like a super fast sports car. It gets you to the line with a blink of a second, but make one mistake and you're off the track. And that those images are around my thinking, always like, okay, super sharp tool, you need to be careful, super helpful in that regard, in that way. Used wrong, it will hurt you. Like all the tools that do automation or make your life easier, for someday it's not here anymore. What's then? Or something breaks. You really need to, and that's my example always for if we talk about GitHub Copilot for generating code, it's scarily good for my use cases. I need to be honest, I don't write code for production, so my code is always crap, but it just needs to work for demos and for showcases and for breakthroughs. So it's super helpful. Just last week, I needed a tool that takes transcriptions from YouTube videos. Ask Copilot, what do I know about the YouTube API? Nothing. So I could open up the README. But the version is here. It's working. I know what an API does. I can read the code. All good. But if you give the same capability to someone that hasn't a background in software development for a couple of years, or doesn't matter the language, but for the tech stack, and something breaks, what's the next part? Hey, Copilot, help me with that error message. Then you're back on. That's what I'm seeing with my students. They generate code and then they're back at Stack Overflow, looking up for error messages, but they didn't write the code. That's not really helpful for them.
That is a while back. I got this tip. Like when you build something, or you build on a platform or a tool chain or framework or whatever, you need to know the layer below that. Just to understand, in case, exactly as you say, when things break, that you are able to reason why things break, and also what to debug, what to check, because you understand the mechanics of it, right? So, and at times it's hard, right? Because like when you go, let's say you go to, I don't know, like even think about like the work that we do on proxy, like the layer below that, like you will get really fast towards, the HTTP client and TCP sockets and SSL termination. And these aren't, trivial thing that you encounter in everyday job. So these are like, it gets pretty hard pretty fast. Nonetheless, for the things that we do, like we need to at least be able to talk about it in a reasonable way, because that's where errors lie for us. So that is, I think, a great tip to really think twice about, yes, this is where you work, but also be aware of what the layers are and what you work on, so that when things break, you are, able to help yourself and not being a helpless person. Like, I don't know, things break, I see an error, I cannot do anything about it.
That's a super example, or I'm always referencing in that way. What's happening if you press F5 in Visual Studio?
Oh, how much time do you have? How much time do you have?
Think of all the work you need to do for DevOps and your workflows. If you have no idea what F5 does, go be happy with DevOps and your GitHub channel.
There is even a better example that we all encounter in every day. You type a URL in browser. And then what? How does what's the route from that URL to you seeing something appear, like all the the traffic and the back and forth between. Even that isn't as simple as it might seem, and you can go really deep on it. So yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Of which then you could ask Copilot to explain the concept
to
you and actually do it in a slightly different way, maybe as a conversation, maybe even as a song, right?
it's I think we talked about that on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, because at some point some of my samples stopped working and I wasn't able to reach an Azure endpoint, and I what? No, the endpoint is still there. The script 100% worked. What changed? And it took me 2 or 3 days, and then I realized that I updated my, what's it called, the DNS thing on Raspberry Pi.
Pi-hole.
Pi-hole. And I pumped that a couple of versions up, and then I realized that this particular subdomain in Azure is on some guy's block list. Took me 2 or 3 days to realize
it's impossible to check.
Yeah, because you get a DNS error back somewhere in the chain. And the tooling is not saying, okay, I cannot reach this IP address. It's just like, oh, not working. Like, what? So that's now the thing. If something isn't working, wait a second, go to Pi-hole.
Is it a DNS?
Turn it off for 5 minutes, and then okay, no. But yeah, the same thing. I'm using a cool tool. If I don't know what it's doing, it hurts me.
And I think leaving it with "it was DNS all along" is probably a good time to wrap up. Tommy, thank you very much for coming to speak to us today, sharing your insights, how you're using Copilot, and just AI in general. So, yeah, thank you very much, and we'll say bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.